where it is that you are coming from. We would love to hear from you. Okay, so Trent, now I'm on your page.
Yep, live stream's working. Looks good.
Okay, we're in. We did it. Okay, well, thank you for coming in. We're excited to have people here, about 180 people, and we are excited. If you have someone, hey, welcome from Denver, Bill. If you have someone that you wanted to make sure got on this call, because this is you'll see when you hear it, this is a movement. There's a movement around what we're talking about tonight because people are hearing this information. They're waking up to something that was right in front of them and realizing that they're waking up realizing that this metabolic health issue that we're going to teach you about tonight is right in front of you. We are so excited to have people coming in. We have about 209 people on here, more people on the live stream. We are talking about dysbiosis, metabolic health, and insulin resistance. And I'm going to introduce my colleague here, and his name is Dr. Dieter. Doctor, he is a double board certified. He's a double board certified physician. So history in pediatrics, and he also worked as an ER doctor. So he's been on the front lines of seeing people coming in to the hospital. Hospital is really, really sick. Dr. Dieter, thank you so much for being here and sharing this knowledge. You will see at the end of this call, you will see why this has become such a movement and why you will want to get on some of these calls again and bring people that you know to these so that they can find out how they can save their own life, extend their life, and keep their family well. Dr. Dieter, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. And
Great.
I'm a lucky guy to be doing this. This is something that I'm very passionate about. So I'm glad to have you guys here today. I'm going to try to make this simple for you to be able to understand this in simplicity. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will start our presentation. Again, welcome. Thank you guys for sharing your evening with us. And let's see.
This is awesome. Thank you, Dr. Dieter.
Okay, and just as you heard Amari say, my name is Dr. Dieter. I'm a double board certified physician. I'm an internist and I'm a pediatrician. And today what I want to do is to walk you through how the modern day diseases that we face today, the chronic medical conditions we face today, are coming from two entities, insulin resistance, an entity called insulin resistance, and another entity called dysbiosis. These two entities result in what we call metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction is just simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage. Okay, so those two entities cause energy shortage, metabolic dysfunction, which then leads to the chronic illnesses that we face. So you could draw a straight line from insulin resistance to the modern day chronic diseases and a straight line from microbiome dysfunction, what I call dysbiosis, to the modern day diseases. Sometimes these components work single-handedly. Sometimes, most of the times, they work in combination to cause all the modern day diseases. Let's take them one after the other, insulin resistance and dysbiosis, and explain to us how they feed into these modern day diseases. Insulin resistance, we start with. What is insulin resistance? When we talk about insulin resistance, we mean that your body's insulin is not working. You see, insulin is a hormone in the body, a very important hormone in the body. And I call insulin the CEO of the body because insulin is so critical in the function of the body. It is what I call hormone numero uno. When insulin is working smoothly and running the body like a good CEO, everything works perfectly, smooth and fine. So insulin dictates smooth functioning and structure of the body. When insulin is not working well, we say you have insulin resistance. So anytime you hear me use the word in this term, in this talk, insulin resistance, we place that with the simplicity of insulin not working well, not doing its CEO job. So why do I elevate insulin and call insulin to be the CEO of the body or the hormone numero uno, the MVP? Is because of this important job that insulin has. And the job of insulin that makes it so paramount is that insulin helps to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. You see, when we eat, the end product of absorption is the release of glucose into the blood. Insulin's job is to move that glucose out of the blood into the cell, right? Commands glucose to get into the cell. When glucose gets into the cell, there is a special organelle in the cell here called the mitochondria. You may remember in your junior biology class the mitochondria being called the powerhouse of the cell. So in the mitochondria, what happens is that the
Good for
glucose
you.
goes through a complex series of reactions called
Not
the
at all.
electron transport chain with the result of an energy molecule called ATP. That's just simply an energy molecule. Now, the smallest entity of the body is a cell. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. It needs to pay with energy to function. Cells group up to form tissues, organs, system. The system now forms the whole man. But remember this, every single cell in the body requires energy to function. When the cell doesn't have the ATP, the energy it needs to function, the cell malfunctions. And the simplest definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has malfunctioned. Why did it malfunction? Because it lacked the energy it needs to malfunction. So why then do I elevate insulin and put it on this huge MVP, CEO of the body, or what have you? Is because insulin sits central at the body's production of energy. Without insulin, the body cannot produce energy. So that's why insulin is so pivotal. So when you have insulin resistance, there's a breakdown in this process of insulin being able to secure the body's energy needs. That breakdown is called insulin resistance. Now, how did the breakdown occur? Because once upon a time ago, insulin was working well. So when my car breaks down and I take it to the mechanic, the first thing the mechanic will do is to run a diagnostic to find out, why did Dr. Dieter's car break down? Because when he could figure out what caused the breakdown, he could walk backwards to fix it. So I want you guys to understand what causes the breakdown. That is insulin resistance. And it happens in a two-step process. The first step we call too much fat. Okay, too much fat. Now we need fat, but too much fat is not good. Fat is the body's alternate source of energy. So when you have much more than the body needs, it causes the first stage of insulin resistance. And normally, a cell is supposed to look like this. When we consume more calories than we are supposed to consume, those excess calories are converted into fat. The cell doesn't know what to do with that excess fat. It comes and lumps it into the cell. I'll draw a replica of the cell. So normally the cell should look like this. Excess calories get converted into fat. That fat now, the cell knows not what to do with it. The cell lumps it up in the cell. And the the body lumps the fat into the cell. Now, we consuming way too much calories than we're supposed to be in this day and age. In fact, the statistics say that in our generation, we are taking in about 30 to 35% more calories than our
That's
ancestors did
crazy.
100, 200 years ago.
That is
Those
crazy.
excess calories, your body is inundated with it. You need to think about this. If you every time we eat, we put the hormone insulin to work. So if we're consuming 30 to 35% more calories than our ancestors, Insulin is working overtime that it was not meant to be. Imagine if you had a job and your boss told you, hey, Anna, on this job, you're going to work 30% overtime every day. You're going to burn out. So that's what's happening. We're putting insulin to work so much with those calories. So those excess calories get lumped into this cell, and this cell now becomes a fat-laden cell. Okay. And that's not a good thing. Why? Because the job of insulin is that when you have glucose in the blood, insulin now commands the cell to say, hey, I got glucose in the blood, take it up. This normal cell is going to take it up easily. You come to this cell that is fat laden, insulin comes to the door, knocks at the door of this cell and tells this cell, hey, I got glucose in the blood. I need you to take it up so we can make energy. And this cell says, what, are you kidding me? Don't you see that I'm fat laden? I'm filled with fat. And the cell acting like the innkeeper says, look, I got no room in the inn. If I were to bring glucose in, where is glucose going to lay his head? There is no place for it. So the cell refuses to let glucose in. And if glucose cannot get into the cell, it cannot run through the electron transport chain to produce energy. And what is happening here is mind-blowing. Why is it mind-blowing? Because glucose is the most favorite food for the cell. The cell needs glucose to survive. But you have a situation that the cell has turned away glucose because the cell is inundated with fat. Okay? Profound. So what happens is that glucose accumulates in the blood. That glucose that accumulates in the blood is a problem too, because there is a one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin production by the pancreas. So when glucose rises in the blood, a text message is sent to the pancreas to say, hey, pancreas, there's too much glucose hanging around. You need to produce a commensurate high amount of insulin to bring that glucose down. The pancreas now produces too much insulin. And too much insulin is not a good thing, guys. It's not a good thing. Remember, I described insulin as the CEO of the body that dictates the smooth functioning and structure of the body. Imagine a CEO of a company that normally dictated the smooth functioning of this important company. He comes to work one day and he has lost it. He has gone crazy. When insulin is now secreted by the pancreas too much to address this high glucose, insulin is now acting like a bully and a tyrant. That CEO of the body, or the CEO of that company has come to work, and he becomes tyrannical. He's backing at others of people. He's no longer cool and calm and collective. He comes to your desk. He says, you're going to do this the highway or my way, embarrasses you and what have you. A boss who was normally level-headed like that, who now begins to act out of character and tyrannical, what happens very quickly is that the employees of that boss are going to lose their respect for their boss. So the employees, when they lose their respect for their CEO, they become reluctant to do what the CEO asks them to do. So if I lose my respect for my boss, who is my CEO, is supposed to be calm, cool, and collective. If he comes to me and says, Dr. D, listen, I got this project I want you to do. We need it done in 60 days, but I've lost my respect for my boss man. So what I tell my boss man, what I do in my heart is I'm reluctant to do the project because I have lots of respect, but I don't want to lose my job. So I'm going to do the project, but not do it great. If I normally supposed to bring my A game to a project, I may bring my B game or my C plus because I've lost my respect for the boss. I'm coming with reluctance. You translate that to the cell. When insulin is acting too much, insulin is being a bully and a tyrant to the cell. The cell doesn't take kindly to that high tone insulin. The cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, the cell becomes reluctant to do what insulin asks the cell to do. What does insulin ask the cell to do? Open your doors this wide so that I can let glucose in. In its reluctance, instead of opening its doors this wide, the cell opens its doors this wide. A narrower door means that less glucose enters the cell than if the door was wider. So if less glucose enters the cell, more glucose remains in the blood. So it causes the accumulation of this in the blood, which actually causes the pancreas to produce even more insulin. So you're going from a situation from fry pan to fire. Even more insulin.
Sorry, you don't like
right
it,
there.
Underground
And
Trio.
so
If
you
you don't
have
like
this
science,
vicious
that's all
cycle
right.
of
It's up to you.
insulin, resistance,
Don't have to be nasty about it.
causing worsening in glucose,
So am
causing
I.
worsening insulin resistance over and over. So these two things, too much fat and too much insulin, result in the breakdown of insulin being able to secure our energy needs. Now, when you have insulin resistance, you're not going to develop a slew of illnesses like this. It's very easy to see how insulin resistance is linked to diabetes. But I don't want you to take away from this, because a lot of people hear insulin and think it's just diabetes. Yes,
Right.
it's easy to see how insulin resistance causes diabetes. Look at all this glucose that has accumulated in the blood. It goes past the threshold, you're diabetic. Yeah, but insulin resistance causes a deficiency of energy. Cells need energy to function.
This is important. Pay attention.
Insulin resistance sits at the core of all these issues. I'll give you an example of cancer just really quick. Our DNA looks like this, and it's a double helix structure. Every once in a while, so there are genes in the DNA right here that code for different proteins, okay? That gene in the DNA that codes for different proteins needs to be decoded. It causes the DNA to unwind and look like this in this portion, and then the remainder of the DNA looks like that. So every once in a while, the DNA unwinds, goes to this, and then protein synthesis occurs. You produce the genes that you need to produce, and it goes back to this position. So you're going from a situation of winding, unwinding, winding, unwinding, winding, unwinding, back and forth. You cause wear and tear to the DNA. That wear and tear causes mutations. The body has in its place a DNA repair mechanism. Remember what I said, that every cell in the body requires energy to function? If insulin deprives the body of ATP, insulin resistance, and you don't have the energy that you need, you don't have that energy that could repair the DNA, the damaged DNA. You could have a DNA that will normally have been repaired through DNA damage using ATP energy, but in a deficiency of energy, DNA repair doesn't take place. That mutated DNA now propagates into a cancer. The other thing is that when insulin is running high, it acts as a growth hormone. It causes the acceleration of things, things to grow very fast. There is a process in our cells by which we replace our cells, and that process is called mitosis. Mitosis is a process where two becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, you get it. Insulin causes hyperproliferation, things to grow faster. When you're driving a car and you're driving fast compared to when you're driving slow, are you more likely to have an accident when you're driving fast or when you're driving slow? When you're driving fast, right?
Yeah.
So guess what? When you have insulin resistance, when you have insulin resistance, there's a lot of circulating insulin that is acting like a growth hormone. It comes and speeds up this mitosis process. Instead of 2 becoming 4, through speed, 2 can become 8. 8 can become 32. That's how you develop cancerous growths, one mechanism by which you develop cancerous growths, because of the speed up of proliferation, which should not happen. So for the interest of time, I cannot go through how all these diseases, are related to insulin resistance, but I want you to understand that it sits at the core of many of these modern day diseases. Now, the other component which we talked about is dysbiosis, or microbiome dysfunction. Let's explain what that is first by understanding what the microbiome is. which is a group of about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in the large intestine. Okay? These bacteria called the microbiome perform very specific functions. I want to highlight two functions. They help to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease-causing bacteria. The other thing they do is and they do so by producing a very special short-chain fatty acid. That short-chain fatty acid helps in protecting the gut. These short-chain fatty acids are only produced by the biological activity of this bacteria. You see, we live in a symbiotic relationship with this bacteria. What that means is we live in a do for me, I do for you relationship. Scratch my back, I scratch yours. We are supposed to provide food and shelter for this bacteria, and they're supposed to provide these functions for us. So, how do these short chain fatty acids play this role in protecting the gut? The cells of the gut are lined together one after another like this. This is a cell, this is another cell. So think about multiple of my fists, cell to cell, cell to cell. My fist meets on this cell meets another cell. Right there where they meet is an area of vulnerability called the tight junction. Okay, so what these short chain fatty acids do, the short chain fatty acids actually go and act like sealant, cement, go and pour concrete, or cement on this area to cause it to be tight. When it's tight, it preserves the integrity of the wall so that toxins and bacteria cannot seep in. If it's not tight, it's loose. We talk about leaky gut, bacteria and toxins seep into the gut and we seep through
Right.
the gut into the bloodstream, result in chronic inflammation, result in diseases. The other thing I want to highlight is the
Great
very
info.
important job of the microbiome in regulating and training the immune system. When I first learned about this 3 years ago, I was surprised. You see, the body's immune system, 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. 70%. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, the lymphatics. And these organisms, the microbiome, are responsible for training the immune system on what is the appropriate response to what is perceived attack, what is an attack or what is not an attack. It looks like this. When the microbiome is healthy, it gives the immune system a healthy training on recognition of bacteria, recognition of threat, recognition of what is not a threat, and then giving a prescription to the immune system of what kind of ammunition to use to neutralize what you have identified as a threat. So it looks like this. The microbiome sees a bacteria and tells the immune system, you see that bacteria right there? That bacteria is a bad guy. But even though he's a bad guy, he's a weak bacteria. We could take him out just with a simple stone. No need for big
Right.
firepower. So the immune system knows I could just
I
use
love
just
it.
a little stone to take out this bacteria. Then it may see another guy and tell the immune system, look at that guy right there. And the immune system may say, what guy? I can't see the guy. And the microbiome says, look very well. The reason you cannot see that guy right there, that guy's in camouflage. You have to be very careful with that guy. He's in camouflage. He may look like the enemy, but he is not the enemy. Do not deploy any firepower towards against him. He's one of us. So it has trained the immune system to recognize that that guy is not a threat. Don't do anything to him. That's what a healthy microbiome does to the immune system. When the microbiome is not healthy, it radicalizes the immune system, causes the immune system to be hot-tempered, ready to pick a fight, has his hand on the trigger, ready to shoot. And it looks like this. It may see that bacteria that as a bad guy, and it tells the immune system, see that bacteria as a bad guy? We could probably kill him with a stone, but why use a stone? He's a bad guy. We've already determined that he's a bad guy, and all bad guys need to die. So why don't we just drop a grenade in his backyard? So a bacteria
Great
that you could have
questions,
used a
Fish
small
Stick.
stone to take him out. The immune system, the microbiome has radicalized the immune system to say, let's make a splash. Let's drop a grenade.
I'm gonna pause real quick. So this is going to be really great. So you asked a couple really good questions, Fish Dick. So I want to answer those real quick. Stay with this in part because when your gut microbiome is, and this whole issue of dysbiosis, when we have reversed dysbiosis, there is not an environment where any parasites can live. Most Americans, the average U.S. American, is really not dealing with parasites. Those that are, all right, it's usually because of something with dysbiosis. Now with baking soda, that's got to be, you want to do that limited. I'm not sure what reasons you might be using it. I know people do use it to help with the gut, but if you'll stick with what Dr. Dieter's talking about, you're going to find some real solutions that are backed in the science of solutions to what's going on with your gut. So stick with this. This is going to be some good stuff.
In his backyard. So when you drop that grenade in the backyard, there's going to be collateral damage to other cells and what have you that injure the body. So it's making a mountain, out of an anthill. That should not be the case. Then it may see the guy in camouflage and tell the immune system, that guy in camouflage, I don't got time to decide whether he's the enemy or not in the heat of the battle. He just, I see me camouflage. He looks like the enemy. He smells like the enemy. Let's
You're
shoot.
welcome. That's what I'm
And
here
just
for.
takes him
I'm
out.
so glad that you're
They
keep
go to the
asking questions
autopsy
as they come
table
up.
now and they realize, oh, this guy you took out was one of us. And the reason being that when the immune system is unhealthy, it is radicalized. It shoots indiscriminately. If you just smell like the enemy, it doesn't double check. And that's how you develop autoimmune diseases. With the immune system just ready to pick a fight. I have a gun. If I see something that I have a doubt about, I just use that gun and take out the enemy. And when that happens, when the immune system is radicalized like that, it starts attacking the body cells. And that's how autoimmune diseases develop, coming from the gut because the immune system has been radicalized. Now that you understand what the microbiome is, what then is dysbiosis or microbiome
Pay attention
dysfunction?
right
You
here.
see, the bacteria in the
It's going to
gut
be
live
helpful
in a 50-50% proportion,
because your
50% the
gut's out of
bad
balance. Anybody dealing with
and
parasites, this is
50% of
why.
the other bacteria good. They live in a check and balances, the good balance, the bad. Now, when we say you have dysbiosis, there is an imbalance in that 50-50% proportion. And what happens is the bad guys become 70% and the good guys become 30%. That imbalance is what we call dysbiosis. Why does the imbalance occur? The imbalance occurs for two things. For one thing,
This is
because of the shortage of food. You see, the food for the microbiome is fiber. Fiber is one of those special nutrients that humans do not digest. And the reason being that God designed it to be chow for the microbiome.
here.
Unfortunately, our foods are so processed. We are not consuming enough fiber. Because we're not consuming enough fiber, there is a shortage of food. Every time there is shortage, survival of the fittest sets in. Imagine in the times of the pandemic, if it was the survival of the fittest mentality. If you went to Costco, you'd be lucky if you found bread on the shelf or
Toilet
toilet
paper.
tissue on the shelf. So shortage of food causes survival of the fittest.
Wasn't
And
the
in the
food, it was the
survival of
toilet
the
paper.
fittest fight, the
Oh
bad
man.
bacteria is stronger. So the bad bacteria are able to hoard the food. So they say to themselves, you know what? There's not enough food to go around for us the good guys, for us the bad guys and the good guys. Let's hoard the little food
Stay,
that is there
stay
to
with
ourselves since we're stronger. And to keep a monopoly on this food, let's increase our army at the expense of the good guys to keep a monopoly on this little short food. And that causes dysbiosis, that imbalance. And that imbalance now, dysbiosis, now leads to a slew of illnesses.
right
This is
here.
the microbiome that is
Awesome.
dysfunctional.
So
Hashimoto's is an
important.
autoimmune disease. Microbiome has radicalized the immune system to attack the body cells. Lupus, an autoimmune disease. MS, an autoimmune disease. Celiac, an autoimmune disease. So a lot of
Awesome.
diseases here that I cannot enumerate, that as a result of microbiome dysfunction. Many more diseases that cannot be put on this slide, but I want to highlight two illnesses here because this is something that shocked me when I learned about it 3 years ago. Mental health is a huge issue
How many of
today.
y'all are dealing with that?
The
I've
amount
dealt with anxiety and depression.
of young adults being diagnosed with anxiety and depression,
Been there.
irritable bowel
Yes.
syndrome, and all of that. I was astonished to learn that the primary reason for anxiety and depression is due to the gut and unhealthy gut dysbiosis. You see, there is a special hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is what we call your happy hormone, okay? It helps
Yep.
to maintain your mood, happiness and mood hormone. Did you guys know that 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut? In medical school, I always thought all of it was produced in the central nervous system. There's something called the gut-brain axis. Only 10% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. When the gut is unhealthy, it means the factory
This
that
is a
makes
doctor explained it
serotonin
well.
is not working. If the factory is not working, is it gonna produce this product? Nah. If it doesn't, then you cannot secure mood and happiness, you have anxiety and depression. So huge, huge, huge. This slide here is a slide that I call the metabolic sequence of inflammation that shows that insulin resistance results in energy shortage, that results in injury to the cell, that turns on the immune system and causes the immune system to be chronically turned on, that is at the heart of the symptoms and diseases that we face. Now, as um, as much as there is evidence that these two entities, insulin resistance and dysbiosis, have a direct link to the chronic illnesses by causing this energy shortage, there is now a good amount of evidence that shows that if you reverse these two root causes, the insulin resistance and the dysbiosis, you will reverse the disease condition. Because what happens is that these two root causes still deprive the body of energy. Okay. Now, when the body doesn't have energy to functions, it malfunctions the disease process. If you are able to restore the stolen energy, you can reverse the disease condition. And I like giving this analogy of a car driving on the road. You driving your car on the road and it runs out of gas. When it does, it's gonna stop. It stops because it's run out of gas, not because of an intrinsic failure of the engine. If you were to go to the gas station, buy
Right.
gas in a gallon, and walk back to your car on the side of the road and put gas back in that car and go and turn back the ignition, it's gonna
Go.
start again. I've ran
Go,
out of
go.
gas 2 times in my life, and it's embarrassing. But I will tell you, all the 2 times in my life when I ran out of gas, never once did I think when I was pumping gas back into my car, oh, I hope this car is gonna start. No, I wasn't paranoid or worried at all if the car was going to start because I knew its problem was energy. It is that simple but so profound, or put it another way, it is so profound but so simple that these disease conditions, as a result of energy shortage, our biology is deprived of the energy it needs. If you restore that energy, just like that car that ran out of gas, starts working again when you put gas into it, it starts working again. You see, our ancestors never had these diseases. You go back 100, 200 years in the past, and I gave you a time machine, you're going to come back and report to me, hey, doc, I never found a single person with fatty liver. Now fatty liver is now the number one cause of, cirrhosis in the United States, no longer alcohol in people who have never drank. I gave you a time machine, you come back and report to me, doc, I never found a single person living 100 years ago with irritable bowel syndrome or Hashimoto's.
Right.
And why? Because our ancestors ate, lived in such a way that they nourish their body with foods that kept their biology working. In our day and age, our foods are so processed. If I put a bagel in front of my great grandfather, he's going to be stunned. He's going to ask me, "What is that, son?" He's not going to recognize that. And those are the things that cause our illnesses. There is great news because I want to talk to you about a solution. There's this company that asked a very smart question. And the smart question they asked was that, why is it that 100, 200 years ago, our ancestors never had these problems that we have? The diabetes, the irritable bowel syndrome, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol. And they answered that question by, it had to do with how they lived. It had to do with the phytonutrients they ate. It had to do with, how much they ate, calories, and what they ate. They ate 100% animal and plant, never ate any processed foods. And guess what? Remember what I was talking about?
And had processed food.
How too much fat? Our ancestors never consumed 30 to 35% more calories. So they said, what if we could create a solution that mimics how our ancestors lived? And then was born the Feel Great system, which is a solution that does just that. That helps to use the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse these two root causes. So this Feel Great system is what we call a nutraceutical. When we talk about the nutraceutical, ladies and gentlemen, it's a product that is made 100% from plants but has huge health benefits, ceutical. Okay. And again, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be using the science of intermittent fasting and just supplementing, giving yourself fiber, enough fiber to reverse these two root causes. So let's identify the two products in the nutraceutical. The first product in the nutraceutical is a product called Unimate, made from a plant native to South America called the yerba mate plant. One of the properties of this is that it contains a very important phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Okay, chlorogenic acid. An important property of chlorogenic acid is that it stimulates the body to produce GLP-1s. Many of you have heard of GLP-1s because it's the craze now. Everybody and their mama wants a GLP-1. It's like candy. But did you know that your body produces its own GLP-1s naturally when you stimulate your body with the right foods, phytonutrients? So I'm going to show you how using the science of intermittent fasting and the property of chlorogenic acid initiating GLP-1 production can help to reverse insulin resistance. So when you consume the Unimate, it's going to help you. On this system, we recommend that you fast for at least 16 hours. Have only 2 meals a day. Eat lunch and dinner. We want to use the science of intermittent fasting to reverse insulin resistance. You see, our ancestors, some people say that our ancestors ate about 3 to 5 meals in a week. We're eating 3 meals a day. We're eating,
This is crazy.
3 meals a day. We're eating 3 times a day, the main meals, but snacking throughout the day and inundating our insulin and burning our insulin out. That is working over time. When your body is processing calories, it causes insulin resistance. So we want to give insulin a break, because when we give insulin a break, it recovers from the burnout, not going to work every day. And intermittent fasting helps to give insulin a break. Now, not a lot of people can intermittently fast without willpower. Some people it's difficult for them. The beauty about this is that when it causes the body to stimulates the body to produce GLP-1, you are not able to fast without willpower. Just because GLP-1 is stimulated is going to silence the hunger center in your brain and cause you to be able to fast. Why is fasting important? When you're fasting, I'm going to clear this so that I can use this. When you're fasting, what happens is you're giving your body's insulin a rest. And when you give your body's insulin a rest, let me tell you what happens. You see, we have two sources of energy, glucose and fat. The body principally uses glucose 80% of the time as its main source of fuel, and uses fat only 20% of time as its main source of fuel. Glucose is like the body's check-ins account, okay? When you think about glucose, think about like your check-ins account. Glucose is like the body's check-ins account. Fat is the body's savings account. The body is always going to lose glucose in terms of plenty. It's using it 80%. When things are tough, the body is going to switch to its savings account. So what happens when you're fasting? We're going to use the science of intermittent fasting to help reverse insulin resistance. When you're fasting, your body's glucose levels go low. When your body's glucose levels go low, it's equivalent to your check-ins account going low. When your check-ins account goes low, you still got to pay your bills, right? Your mortgage doesn't go away. The bills still have to be paid. So the body still has energy needs that it needs to meet. So the body now switches when your glucose level is fasting. The body now has to switch to its savings account, to use fat as fuel. Why is that beneficial? Because this cell that was fat laden right now, when you are fasting, that fat laden cell is now juicy fuel for the body to use. The body starts
Fuel is what he's
using
saying,
that fat
y'all. I'm
as fuel.
following
You're
that.
shifting
It's
from
fuel.
your check-ins account to your savings account. Yeah, the body uses that fat as fuel, and this cell that was fat laden now all of a sudden becomes like this. It's now free of the fat that was in it. Now that it is free of the fat that's in it, what happens? All that glucose that had accumulated into the blood now goes into the cell. When the glucose goes into the cell, it could be run through the electron transport chain to make energy. You're restoring the stolen energy, reversing insulin resistance. And that's what Unamate does for you. It helps you to be able, it helps people who are not able to fast to be able to fast, to tap into the science of intermittent fasting, to change from your check-ins account to your savings account. So you go like that. Now, when that happens, what happens is that also helps to solve the second step, because the second step occurred because you had too much insulin. When all the glucose in the blood now is able to enter this cell that is now free, the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a text message is sent to the pancreas. Hey, you got to lower your tone now of insulin. Give us low insulin, because the amount of glucose in the blood doesn't demand you to be making that high insulin. Low insulin is like a CEO that was crazy that returns to earth. He comes to work one day, he calls an in-service to his employees and says, hey guys, I've been a jerk for the last 2 months. I am sorry. Please, he's contrite. Please forgive me. I was a bully. I said things. I did things. I fired some of you unreasonable. Please forgive me. The employees are taken aback by that apology. Oh, that boss, the big boss, is coming to me
The
to
big
tell me
boss.
I wronged you. Please forgive me. Taken aback by that humility, they forgive their boss. When they forgive their boss, they regain respect for the boss. When they regain the respect for the boss, yeah, they're now more amenable to do what the boss says, no longer reluctant. You translate that to the cell. When insulin now starts running low, right? Insulin is no longer acting as a bully and a tyrant to the cell. The cell says, you know what? I can deal with that insulin guy now. When insulin now tells the cell, open your doors this wide so I can let glucose into the cell is happy to open its doors this wide. A wider door, more glucose into the cell, more ATP, restoring the stolen energy. So that is what intermittent fasting does. But the other property of chlorogenic acid, in addition to inducing the body to produce GLP-1s so you can intermittently fast, Chlorogenic acid has an intrinsic property of causing lipolysis, fat burning. So chlorogenic acid causes this cell, which is like this, its intrinsic property through the process of lipolysis, fat burning causes the cell to go like this. So you're having a two punch to take away this problem of insulin resistance. The first punch is the GLP-1 effect helping you to intermittently fast, causing you to switch to here. And the second punch is the intrinsic property of chlorogenic acid to cause lipolysis, fat burning.
Yeah, it's key because
It reverses insulin resistance that way.
That fat with
Fiber, which is the second product in the protocol, reverses insulin resistance in the same way. This protocol balance is made up of fiber from 7 different plants. And fiber is very important for your metabolic process, activity. Fiber helps to reverse insulin resistance by switching the body from checking
fiber effect. Oh,
to savings account. It helps lipolysis. It causes this, right? So exactly it's going to result in this step and this step. But the other cool thing that fiber does is this. Fiber decreases your glucose absorption. And the implications are like this. If fiber decreases glucose absorption, it causes your glucose spikes to be lower. And why is that? Fiber slows the transit of food through the colon. When food through the colon is slowed, it results in a slow release of glucose in the blood. The opposite, when food through the colon moves fast because we're not consuming enough fiber, there's a high amount of glucose that is released in the blood. If you and I went to an Italian restaurant to eat lasagna, and that's you and that's me, and we both ordered a plate of lasagna, and you consume your lasagna without any fiber, your blood sugar will do this. And that blood sugar for you may be a blood sugar of 180. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber, and I know that the balance product of the feed rate system is which is going to slow down my glucose spike. What I do is I take the balance product first, and then I eat the exact same plate of lasagna, the exact same quantity. This is what my blood sugar will do.
Right here.
And that blood sugar level may be a blood sugar of 70. You and I have eaten exactly the same plate of lasagna. Your blood sugar's gone up to 180. Mine has gone up to 70. Exact same quantity. Only difference, fiber. Only difference, this balanced product that is saturated in fiber. What are the implications of that? When your blood sugar goes up to 180, your pancreas is going to produce a commensurate high amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 180. Your pancreas for you may produce 20 units of insulin. For me, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 70. For me, my pancreas may produce 5 units of insulin. I want you to think about 20 units of insulin like the crazy CEO. When the CEO is crazy, employees don't respect him. I want you to think about 5 units of insulin like the humble CEO. When the CEO is humble, when he asks the employees jump, the employees say how high. So that's the implication of fiber. The last thing is that because you have produced 20 units of insulin compared to me 5 units of insulin, insulin is an anabolic hormone. It causes you to store calories. So from this plate of lasagna, because you produced 20 units of insulin, you may gain 950 calories from that plate of lasagna. For me, because I only produce 5 units of insulin from that same plate of lasagna, I may gain 300 calories. Now, what's the implication of that? Remember, the first way in which you develop insulin resistance was a cell that had too much calories was converted into fat. So if you produce 950 calories, I produce 300. Your excess calories, the body is going to take those excess calories, convert them into fat, lump them into this cell, and cause that cell to be insulin resistant. Those are the implications of fiber in terms of reversing or promoting insulin sensitivity. The last thing is that fiber is food for the microbiome. Fiber is food for the microbiome and helps to reverse an unhealthy gut. Every cell in the single living organism requires food. A bacteria in the gut requires food. A lion in the jungle requires food. And the food for the microbiome is fiber. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we're not consuming enough fiber. In fact, a man is supposed to consume at least 38 grams of fiber a day. A woman is supposed to consume at least 25 grams. The NIH estimates that in the United States, the average intake of fiber is 10 to 12 grams. That's less than 50% of the required amount. Do you know how much fiber your ancestors and my ancestors were taking a day? It's estimated that they were consuming about 80 to 90 grams of fiber. We're sitting at the laughable 10 to 12. No doubt we have dysbiosis. No doubt we have insulin resistance. So I will end by saying this, that the Feel Great system, through its effect on reversing these two root causes, can help you if you have any modern diseases that come as a result of stolen energy from this and this. The Feel Great system, my bold statement is that it could help you reclaim your health again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Dieter. I appreciate it. You are amazing. And if you've never gotten to hear Dr. Dieter before, I mean, he is just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. So just so very thankful that I could bring him on to do tonight, and to be on as we've had a chance to talk about metabolic health and particularly about the root cause there. So if you've got any questions about this, that's what I'm here for. And for me, this information was game changer. Yeah, I'm 54 now. I'm an old guy on here. Of course, I need fiber, right? I need to go to Walmart and get Metamucil. But the reality of this is, if you are a millennial, one of the leading cancers now is colon cancer. That is one of the leading cancers for for our young people, for millennials. Leading cancer that's one of the fastest growing cancers in millennials. The number one reason is a lack of fiber, because that's in your gut. Your colon cancer is in your gut. All right. Dr. Dieter just went through the whole issues of dysbiosis and about healing your gut and understanding how your gut works. I'll be back on live tomorrow. This is going to be saved over on my channel, so you'll get a chance if you've missed Dr. Dieter's lecture. It's going to be here, and know that I'm going to be here and helping with this Alaska, or with Healthy Together and Feeling Great. Dr. G and I are going to be going live on Thursday night with Derek Henderson, retired professional baseball player, who is also now a metabolic coach, and we're going to be talking together. It's going to be great. You're going to get to hear more about this, particularly as it relates to our overall health and different aspects of that whole big chart of the signs of that squid of insulin resistance and those causes. So thank you all for being here. Go get the day, make it golden, and definitely message, we will definitely be back on again. Thank you all so very much. We'll be ending the stream, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go get the day, make it golden.